we're gonna get this kicked off now. It's 2:30. So welcome everyone. My name is Hubert Zaitchik. I run Health Wildcatters, and I'm together with Lindsay Settles, who's also works at Health Wildcatters. We're the track captains for a Dallas Startup Week healthcare track, and by Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so I'm happy to have three great entrepreneurs here. They're going to tell me all the mistakes they've done throughout their whole life. We're going to start with kindergarten. No, I'm just kidding, but we're gonna dig into some of the do's and don'ts, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. As I always say, one of the things, if you have mentors and others, or an accelerator, wherever you get your advice, the point of the matter is that some of those mistakes you don't need to be making, because you hear it from others and can learn. And so that's one of the great shortcuts. So it's my pleasure to do a quick intro on everyone here. So we're going to start with ladies first. Sunny Nadolsky is the CEO of MediBooker. MediBooker is an award-winning digital healthcare navigation and engagement platform. And she's also a serial entrepreneur. She started more than one venture before. And she's a mentor and investor over here at Health Wildcatters. Also a graduate of Health Wildcatters. I love that. Double. The other two take notes. I know you're already mentors, but the investor piece, I'm waiting for that. But I'll know when that happens. Sunny's also involved in RevTech and the Dallas Angel Network. Like I said, an alumnus of 2016. MediBooker has won a number of awards over the years. DCO Healthcare Excellence Award, and Rising Star Award at Tech Week, and many others. And she has received her MBA from Arizona State and studied in postdoctoral programs and management and HR at Michigan State. And then we have Toby Zutz here. Toby is the CEO and founder of Greger Diagnostics, a molecular diagnostics company developing new screening tests for prostate cancer. Toby went through the Health Wildcatters program in 2017.
Yep.
Raised money from a variety of sources, Greenberg & Golf, First Round Capital, Wharf. You can tell us a little bit more about that possibly. Toby got his start at Exact Sciences, which developed Cologuard. So many of you have seen the ads for Cologuard maybe. And got his BS in biochemistry and genetics and his master's in biotechnology, both from the University of Wisconsin. And then, last but not least, Mr. Coffee on the right lower. We just all publicly watched him make coffee. For those of you who missed out, Kobe, show us the coffee. Kobe, there we go. Okay, now we just, so Kobe is the CEO and founder of Mountain Health Technologies, which is focusing on business technology, sales, and product strategy there. Prior to Mountain, Kobe was senior product consultant at Merrill Lynch, and prior to that, he also founded Oba, another startup in healthcare out of MIT. And he'll tell us a little bit more about Mountain. Kobe, tell me, did you get your undergrad in the US or?
Yeah, I did.
At MIT? Or?
Yes, and Woodbridge College, so 2 places.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. Sorry, I didn't have that on here. I knew it was there. Anyway, so we're gonna kick this off here with this esteemed group of healthcare entrepreneurs, and really the first thing I want to do is set the stage. So each of you, in a couple of minutes, and I'll time you because we need to stay on track. But in a couple of minutes, tell us about your startup and anything you want to share about it, whether it's any hardships overcome or any particular things you want to mention, but tell us a little bit about what it is you do, so we can at least get started with that. And we'll start with Sunny again, if you don't mind. Sunny, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Hubert, for your kind introduction. It's great to be here. Hi, everyone. Dallas Startup Week is a great event. And for myself, as Hubert mentioned, I'm founder and CEO of MediBooker. MediBooker provides a digital platform solution to employers, help employers to guide their employees with transparent information, a solution navigating employees through the journey, the healthcare journey, with network benefits, and also what they should do, and that whole A to Z journey. MediBooker also provide a white label solution to provider groups such as ACOs or health plans to white label what MediBooker has built, and in that digital patient engagement space. So we, as Hubert mentioned, that we graduated from Health Wildcatters in 2016. So we've been building the solution, building the company during the past 4 years. So looking back, I guess I could say 3 things that I feel we did that are critical to where we are today. Number 1, I think I am glad I picked a space where I feel very passionate about. That I, through the years, was able to keep building every day, doing what I love, and able to communicate that passion of mine with clients, with team members, with investors. So that's number 1, I think. What's the do's if you are at where you are, to figure out what to do, and that's point number 1. Now, then point number 2, not because Hubert is here, one of the biggest steps we took, I believe, that really set us to the right path was to find the right incubator accelerator program. For us, that was Health Wildcatters. I mean, it really made a difference in terms of figuring out if I was solving the right problem with the right model through all this guidance by the mentors and through that program. That was critical. And really, number 3, to build the right team with the right people. You know, companies are not in a fictitious shell or within a gate, it's an office space. Companies are a group of people. You find the best team members that are good at what you need them to do to advance the company's growth. I'll stop here in terms of the do's, and do you want me to talk about maybe the don't right now or later, Hubert?
No, that was 2 minutes right on, perfect to kind of start off with the description and some things you think that went well. So well, let's stay in this rotation. Let's kick it over to Toby, and tell us a little bit about the company, and if you want to weave in the do's,
sure,
please by all means do.
Yeah, so I'm Toby Zitz. I'm the CEO and founder of Gregor Diagnostics, and as Hubert said, we're developing a new screening test for prostate cancer. When I set out to kind of find what the next thing I was going to work on, I wanted to identify an area that had a huge unmet medical need, and that for me was prostate cancer screening. It's the number 2 cancer killer for men in the United States, and screening rates have been declining since 2008. So just like Sunny said, picking a problem that you can get passionate about is obviously a huge thing that you need to do, and I felt like this was an area with my experience I could build a great company. One of the things that I think would be kind of a misstep, but then also I've had success with is not always doing everything by yourself, especially as an early stage startup. You kind of take that, at least for me, I sometimes take that opportunity to be like, oh, we need to get this done, so I'm just going to do it and knock it out. And sometimes it's more, it actually ends up being better if you just hire the people that really can do it. And so for our case, we ended up needing to run a clinical study, and I put together the first clinical protocol, which I had never done before. My experience is all assay development and lab background. That's really where my strengths are. But I got it going, and then eventually hired someone, I think 3 months down the line, who really knew what she was doing, and she turned it around and made it much more successful. So it's making sure when you have something critical that you bring the people on board who really can do that. And that's one of the things that I've both been terrible at and also had some success with.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's a good start. Kobe?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kobe Amor. I run a company called Mountain Health. We started Mountain Health just in the fall of 2019. We're essentially a digital health system for young adults. We provide healthcare services that young adults use on a daily basis, like primary healthcare, sexual health services, women's healthcare needs and wellness services for $30 a month. Our focus has really been young adults who are underinsured. So they either have catastrophic plans or high deductible healthcare plans, or underinsured or uninsured young adults in spaces like the gig economy or freelancers and the rest. As I mentioned, we launched in 2019. We started selling broadly across the board in March of this year. And it's been an interesting experience since then. In terms of things that we did well, maybe I'll just touch on two things in this first round so that I can keep it brief. I think we learned to focus on one thing at a time. Like healthcare is one of those industries where you just can't build a MVP product and expect someone to use it. And so what you do so many things, you're trying to connect so many systems, and it becomes super difficult, it becomes costly. And so very early on, we try to figure out, okay, what's the easiest solution that we can put together that someone would actually be willing to pay for? And that was super helpful in getting some early stage traction and being able to move from there. The last thing I'll add is just piggyback on what Tobias said about, outsourcing some of the tasks. When we started out, we're just a 2-person company, and so we try to do everything. And you end up doing the tasks that don't really move the needle, but then they're easy to do. And so you're always busy, but you're not really moving the needle. So being able to outsource things that are not core to the business so that you can focus on doing the super hard things, that's just been a super important lesson that I learned this time around. So yeah, I'm glad to be on this panel and looking forward to answering questions.
Thank you. I have one to add for what you did right for Sunny. She's also a gifted photographer, so I can't keep it on for the picture.
Thank you.
Background here. Anyway, this is a photo actually of Aspen. Anyway, it's very common for entrepreneurs to have many passions, and sometimes you can get pulled into too many directions, but sometimes it's also good to have something that kind of takes your mind off things and allows you to just not think about work, because it's a 24/7 full contact sport for all of you. And so I'm gonna go to the dark side now and go to it's confession time. So tell us something that that you think might have not gone right, or in your own words, or how did you overcome an obstacle, or you think you made a wrong decision. As I said in the previous panel with Michael Gordon, I mean, entrepreneurs have many decisions to make, and many of them are going to be wrong along the way. The question is, are you going to stand there, dwell on it, look back, and complain? We're going to do something about it and move forward. And so it's just one of those things people don't consider very often, is that you're going to have to be able to overcome these things. And they can be some serious mistakes, and often you don't know until you have it in your rear view mirror. So Sunny, go take us away on this more edgy question. What did you do wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say someone that sticks with me, that I wish I knew better, was learn to say no, even when you were early. We all have the same amount of time every day. It is a race, unless you were building really the Teladoc when nobody was doing telehealth. So healthcare is a very overwhelming space. Oftentimes, whatever you're doing, someone else might be doing the same thing. So learn to say no, focus. Like when you say no to folks who invite you to do something or invite you to do something that is not focal to you, you're not being rude by telling them you just can't do it, because you got to focus on building what you have to do. Because if you feel, it doesn't matter how you help other people, right? So that's number one. And related to that is not to overschedule oneself. In my early days, I overschedule myself, trying to do everything. You gotta leave time for yourself to think. At least nowadays, I dedicate at least an hour to just keep up with the market. You know, what's going on, policy, market trend, new technology. Especially we're in digital. I mean, the cycle is very fast. You are behind the market a few months, you could be a whole cycle behind. So learn what's going on. How about competitors? You know, learn about them, what's up with them. Dedicated time to yourself to think, to read is critical. Now do more later on. I'll just put that one out.
I can't wait. I've made a lot of mistakes myself, so let's not dwell on those. But none of them were you guys, so having this panel is certainly not one. But I would say I'll add one. You know what? It's actually fair enough. I'll add one. And for us as an accelerator, it can be the big shiny object. So somebody swoops in, and it's just all captivating. And before you know it, you're thinking, oh, I gotta have that startup in my lineup. I want to make sure they're part of our cohort. And really, just like everybody else, you're being snowed, and the persona is so strong of that person that you're getting sucked in. My antidote to that is my partners. So all of us have vulnerabilities. All of us are subject to being, you know, charmed with a certain thing, you know, charmed with a certain aspect or a person or whatever it is, a certain area of healthcare that, oh, I gotta have a startup in this area. And that's when your partner or your advisors or your board of directors can keep you straight. And so in my case, it's my partners. So we have a veto rule. You know, anyone, if one person on the board is not wanting to start up in, we're not going to take it in. We're just not going to do it. And so this keeps personal biases out a little bit. That doesn't mean that you can't lobby for one. You feel strongly, go ahead and lobby, convince the others. But everyone has a veto rule, and that kind of keeps us from any one of us being beholden to a single startup, and also from getting too full of ourselves, which is something that happens to a lot of investors who all of a sudden think they're the brain and everything. So anyway, that happens, and can even happen to people in my position. And so it's good to stay grounded. So Toby, so my confession. So Toby, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think one big thing during our process was I didn't change direction quick enough when I knew a certain path wasn't working. So what we're doing for prostate cancer is actually looking at seminal fluid, which is a very unique sample source. These don't exist in freezers of biospecimen companies out there. We have to proactively get them. And so the initial plan in 2018 was to go work with a biospecimen company that does this, that's already established, has all those contacts, and they would go out and recruit the patients and the samples for us. I waited way too long to end that when it wasn't working out and change direction and bring that internally. And it really hurt us. I mean, it was really just us burning time, a lot of it, where if I'd made that decision 3 months earlier when it was clear that it wasn't working out, we would have been 3 months ahead. So just like when you know something's working, not working, like being willing to change direction and move as fast as possible was a big area that I made a big misstep in late 2018 to kind of course correct.
Do you have a mechanism by which you can address this now? Do you have an advisory board? Or?
Yeah, so we have a scientific advisory board, and really the investors, the three main investors I talk to pretty regularly on what's going on. But yeah, I haven't set up enough of real board to kind of bounce these ideas off of. They definitely pushed me to finally make the change when I did. But had I been talking with them more often, it would have helped change that decision for sure.
Okay, got it. Kobe?
Yeah, so just actually what I would say is pretty similar to what Tobias said, but in our case, it's more about keeping things around for too long. So as I mentioned earlier on, our product is a digital health system. It has different features in there, from requesting labs to mailing prescriptions and things like that. And we quickly realized that there are certain features that are super expensive to keep around. And by expensive, I mean time-wise. So we spend a lot of engineering resources building a particular feature, yet adoption is pretty low. Maybe you see 2%, 3% adoption. But yet we'll keep it around for a long time, and we try to make it better and tweak it. And that was a huge mistake. What we should have done was essentially to kill features that don't work super quickly. You're going to piss 3% of people off, but then it's totally worth it, because if you look at the resources you're putting into it and double down on things that actually work, if you don't do that, you might end up with one, a bloated product, and two, a product that's not good at anything, right? It has about 6 different things and it doesn't do anything very well. And so that's one big mistake we did in the beginning, and we realized that, and we had to kill about 3 features, and it wasn't fun, and you lose subscribers over that and things like that. But in the long term, it's actually pretty good for the company and the product.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's hard to do when somebody's using it. You just say, what's the harm if we keep it? But there is harm, and there's potential in it causing further harm down the pipe. So we got one round of these. I'm going to open it up now to all of you, and I'm also going to start monitoring the questions on the right. So in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to start focusing on the questions. But amongst all of you, each of you has given some advice on that subject as well. But is there another example of something where you say, this is a good thing that I've learned, and maybe it's not an example of a mistake, but something I've learned that I've started doing as a result of something I learned the hard way, or anything you want to share? And I'm going to start monitoring questions. So if you're in the audience, you want to ask these folks any questions, start typing your questions in the right set on the Track Sessions chat, not the event chat. Click on Track Sessions chat. Go ahead. Who wants to? Yeah, raise your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. I would say one of the things I found very, very helpful, especially during the early stages. We're still early, we are 4-year-old. During the first 2 years, it was very super helpful was to form the advisory board. So I picked 1 or 2 in each of the critical areas. For me, it was employer benefits, healthcare provider space, transparency. In all these critical areas, I picked an expert. And many of them I would confide. I'm not sure if I confided to you, 70% of them were from your mentor network. And I got to know when I was in your program. And so I held myself accountable to this advisory board every single month. Every single month, I kept a very transparent communication with them, where I was, what's my plan for next month, how I did this past month, what went right, what didn't, what I thought was, what help do I need. I did that for over a whole year. I opened my bank accounts to them as well, so they know how much money I had in the bank or how much more money I need. So that was really, really helpful to me. I didn't have a large team. As a young startup, you only have a few team members, and you really don't have all the expertise that needed to build up.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know somebody who starts his monthly updates with something called the worrisome. Who might that be, Toby?
Fine. It's actually the 3rd thing, but that's okay. Evidently, that's what you read first. Which is, so I very regularly update the shareholders the first Monday of every month Been going on a little over 2 years now since we first raised our seed round in 2018. So not actually when I was doing Health Wildcatters, but not until after that. And so that's been I got great feedback that they like the consistent format, the consistent information. They know when it's coming every month, and they can kind of track the progress that we're making. The other thing that I would say that's really helped me is part of the accelerator program, right? When you're in a group of other companies and people that are kind of going through the same process is really helpful. And I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin, so we have a group of other CEO founders like me that kind of meet regularly, and I have member of a couple other groups that are like that, and just to have friends who are also going through this, because it's such a very unique experience, to kind of get how they experience this as well, and helps with the mental health aspect of this as much as anything else, but just gives you input. I see a comment about other team members and stuff like that. I'm a solo founder, and so having these other entrepreneurs like in my network has been really helpful, and my family doesn't get as annoyed with me complaining about the problems that you go through. So that I would find a group of other people that are at relatively the same stage too generally helps as well.
That's neat. Yeah, well, the last thing I'll add to the conversation or around this particular topic is put as many things on autopilot as you can and delegate as quickly as possible. Personally, I'm a software developer. I have a finance background, a healthcare background, so I try to do everything, and I try to be involved in every aspect of the company. And what ends up happening is that you, as the CEO, become a bottleneck because you want everything to go through you and know that everything is going the way you want it. What makes sense, or what would help the company, is really not only to delegate, to find someone or your co-founder or something who runs product, and just give them the authority and everything they need to be able to make product decisions. And so when a product feature ships and you don't even like how it looks, it's okay to let that ship and then have that conversation later that, hey, maybe on our next sprint or something, we might be able to change these features. Don't require everything to go through you to be approved before it goes live. It just makes things super complex. When you do that, it really frees you up to focus on two main things. And I think, as a CEO, your biggest job is one, you don't want to run out of money. So fundraising definitely a huge part of the business, and to make sure you're delivering value to customers. And so it allows you to focus on those two things rather than, making sure a button is the right size or it has the right rounded corners and things like that. You can just push all of that off your plate and make sure it runs on autopilot. You can check in from time to time.
Yeah, very good. So now we're going to kick it over to questions. But before I do that, since you mentioned fundraising, just for everyone to know, so all three, Sunny, Toby, and Kobe, have raised significant amounts of primary capital. Sunny's a little over 3, and both Toby and Kobe just under 2 each for this current venture. So they've been through the fundraising piece. Maybe one little anecdote on fundraising. I know there's some questions on the right. I'll get to them in a second. But maybe one little thing on fundraising, like maybe a positive and a negative. Like, here's something I didn't suspect, and here's something I suspected, or I did expect, and it did happen. Sunny, do you have something real quick? Some observation?
Yeah, sure. What worked for me was to work with leading investors. You identify a lead investor. That was very efficient for us. And the leading investor, once the leading investor invests, and that lead investor has a lot of people who respect, a lot of other investors that respect his opinion and simply just followed him. Okay. So at the beginning, you spend a lot of time to communicate with investors why they should invest in you as valuation that you're offering. But once you get through the first hurdle, identify the lead investor, and then it becomes much more efficient. That's what worked for me. What didn't work for me was I didn't know, when you are at the beginning, you wanted to raise capital. Looking back, if I could go back, I would spend more effort on identifying the right investors for you. because pitching to the wrong investors is a waste of time for you and the investors as well. It also creates a discouragement. Now, of course, you shouldn't take it personal, but find the right fit. So be efficient with that.
Okay. And I'll add to that. I've raised a few $1 million too to invest in these guys and other startups. So I've been there too. Plenty of advice, but this is their panel. Toby?
I would say when you're raising money, in addition to that, make sure you're finding the highest quality and ethical investors as well. Because I've been blessed in the investors that invested in me that I haven't had this problem, but you hear stories of, investors pulling out after a term sheet or doing that type of thing. I was surprised kind of how much, it took a long time to raise our first round. But when it came together really quickly. And so I don't think I was ready for that type of shift in pace from everybody. So it went from, am I going to have people to invest in here to there's too many people interested, overnight. And so that really surprised me, but I guess it also probably isn't all that unheard of either. Especially when you start getting high quality investors that, they're all kind of angling for more space in the round, which is great. You can get that.
Yeah. Yeah, in that case, my biggest feedback on raising a round, and just to give you some context, a lot of our investors are institutional investors. So we've raised money from United Healthcare, Northwestern Mutual, a couple of other institutional investors. When you're going through the fundraising process, obviously the first thing you want to do is to do your due diligence, not necessarily around is this an accredited investor. Most likely most of the investors you talk to will be, but like, are they eventually, or would they even want to write you a check? So like if you set up a call with an investor, they are late to the call, they haven't even looked at your website, just some of these basic things, right? You can really just like remove people from the list, because as an entrepreneur, your biggest asset is your time. You don't want to be fundraising for like 6-8 months, your deal becomes stale, no one is interested anymore. So you're able to get like a lot of these investors off your list. And usually investors would say, I want to see more traction or something of the sort. Usually they're probably not going to write you a check. If you're a seed stage company, I mean, what level of traction do you really want to see? Or, a question that we had a lot was, what if Amazon does this? Or what if, some other company does this? And, granted, of course, if they wanted to do that, they would do that. It's just not like enough of a reason to say yes to a deal or not. So just looking out for some of these things, you can get rid of like some investors like that. And you actually want long-term investors too, right? So these are people who would not freak out because you missed a quarterly goal, or your retention rate increased by 2% or something of the sort. People who are, your churn rate. These are people who understand your long-term vision, and they're going to be willing to stick around. Even when you have like $50,000 left in the bank and you can raise your next round, you're going to do something to help. So that's just something to look out for when you go out there to raise.
Yeah, and Michael Gordon just touched on that very subject. So that's funny. Okay, well, let's see here on questions. Varika Pinham asked a question in relation to Toby. How do you find long-term team members?
Yeah, for us, it was all a lot of it was networking, right? The person that I was talking about there, who's now our director of clinical research, I met because I was at a accelerator type event and complaining about our clinical study not going well to someone else who was in the industry, and he was like, "Oh, you should talk to, Emily. She's really great at that." And that introduction to me hiring her was like 10 days or something. So it's really networking and to find the best people. And that's the same way our financing round came together too, was just talking to as many people as possible and letting them know what you're looking for and where you're having problems.
Okay. Then we have a question. I guess that's more of a statement. I think the only time it might be beneficial to look back is when you're trying to outline lessons learned. It's from Pamela. Let's see, Kobe Ganika Pinham. Wait a second. Same last name, so maybe related, maybe not. Kobe mentioned that MVP doesn't work for healthcare. Can you tell us more how do healthcare startups build early traction?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, usually when investors or people in the tech community talk about MVP, it's like something you can code overnight and put it out there, and you get some, early adopters who try it out, give you feedback, and you make improvements to it, right? And like in the healthcare space, this is just almost impossible to do. If you're like Tobias and you're building a diagnostics product, like that, there really isn't an MVP version of that you can spin out in a short period of time. Or even if you're building like, some basic telemedicine system where someone has video calls, you still have to deal with provider credentialing and all of that. So unfortunately, there's not like an easy way to build a healthcare product like overnight or in a short period of time. What we have learned is, and as I mentioned earlier on, can you find the simplest use case that's actually end to end? So you know that if we build it this way, this is the end product, or this is how the user is going to use it, and we can document and properly understand the amount of capital and time involved to be able to do that. So in our case, in our digital health ecosystem, we figured out that, okay, text-based virtual visits is the easiest thing we can build first. So that was the first product we put out there, and we knew that we had to spend a lot of time with lawyers around credentialing for providers, and so we knew that, okay, that will cost X amount of dollars. The product itself we can spin up in about 1 month, and then we spend X amount of dollars on the regulatory piece of things. So that's how you can come up with like a really simple version of your product to put out there, but it's not going to be an overnight thing that you can put together for like $500 or something.
Yeah, that's if you read Bad Blood, I'm sure, Toby, you've read it. That's a Theranos story and all the fraud involved with it. I read recently, and it makes your hair stand up. But it's a good example of you can't in healthcare. Now, of course, that's a diagnostic company, so that's even more of a no, not at all. Don't just do something. Try. I mean, there's some bravado around entrepreneurs putting something together. Well, they're still putting it together. They're already representing it exists, and that happens in the tech space. But in healthcare, you're gonna have to be really, really careful with that, and your claims. And so a lot of these trip hazards that might be considered kind of I can get right up to the edge. They're trenches in healthcare. You get over that trench, you're on the other side of the law, hardcore on the other side of the law, meaning you're going to jail. And there are many such trenches in healthcare. They may not appear. They just appear like a line, and you think, oh, I can just one more step, and there's the abyss right there. And not to scare anyone from being a healthcare entrepreneur, but you should be aware when you're in healthcare, you're dealing with people's lives, and because of that, there are laws for a variety of things. Some of them don't appear to make a whole lot of sense. Most of them have good intent, but they are the very same thing could be legal in another industry, and it is completely illegal in healthcare. And so you gotta have a healthcare person on board. You gotta have good counsel, and so that's a good lesson to learn. Now, to take it all the way to the diagnostic level and develop making representations about things you can't actually do, that's just beyond me. I'm scratching my head all through the book. So we got a question here a little bit more on what do you think the percentages of hardware device manufacturers versus services? In which ways do you think manufacturing devices are mainly different? From Kevin Patel. I'm not sure. Let's skip Kevin. We'll come back to it if we have some good ideas. Let's see, Jesus is asking, how do you see the changes on healthcare reimbursement? All of you guys are affected by that, affecting your business models and bring opportunities. And Jesus is with a startup company here in Dallas as well. So anything around healthcare reimbursement changes? Anybody want to nibble on that?
Yeah, yes, I can go first. This is actually my space, right? And like this is what I do on a daily basis. We started this product really for, as I mentioned, uninsured and uninsured people. We have a lot of members who have commercial insurance and are paying us $30 a month to access our services because they don't want to deal with deductibles and co-pays and out-of-pocket maximums and the rest. But I would just steer the conversation in a different way. I think we live in this system where you're either getting health benefit from your employer or you're buying something on the exchange really super expensive and you don't have any purchasing power over there. And like there's no middle ground over here, right? A lot of the users we serve, folks in the gig economy, they're freelancers. A lot of young adults want to work for themselves, and so they're not going to get employer-based insurance. And there's no middle ground for benefits to be portable. And so if you don't have an employer who has the purchasing power to be able to get you good rates on insurance, then you're just all by yourself. And in most cases, if you have like a $6,000 deductible, like I do, for example, you're paying for most of your healthcare needs out of pocket, and that becomes it's super difficult. What I would love to see is if there could be some regulatory regime that allows employers and companies in the gig economy like Uber, Lyft, and the rest to be able to contribute to individuals' benefits in some portable benefits account that they can use to purchase things at an affordable cost. I probably won't touch on government insurance programs. It's a totally complex world. We're starting to deal with that right now, Medicaid reimbursement and things like that. But maybe someone else on the panel can touch on that.
Anything else on reimbursement? Anybody want to talk about?
I don't have much to add. We're still very pre-revenue, and so we're not dealing with that. But it's obviously one of our biggest risks down the line is will insurance and Medicare pay for this? So for us in diagnostics, there are ways to ensure that the insurance has to cover it. That we can do through guidelines and cancer screening programs. So that's part of it. But yeah, it's a tough battle to try to get insurance companies to pay for new technology for sure.
There was a panel recently here that the chamber organized for some healthcare leaders in the region under John Olajide, who's the chairman right now, and he's also one of our supporters. And really a lot of it had to do with learning about plans like the Indiana plan, which is in my mind too one of the best ways to try to attempt to fairly deal with things. But what it is in a nutshell is that you have a high deductible plan, but you're given money into your health savings account at the same time. Okay, so I think the state of Indiana instituted it. I know Amazon and some big corporations have done it too. So this is a way to kind of deal with this problem of, hey, I'm gonna make the insurance pay me and sign me up. The only way I can get value is max out all the value, right? Blow right past my deductibles and bam, and just charge it up, because then I don't care how much it costs. And nobody wants that, but it's a reality. How do you get value out of a $20,000 insurance? Well, you could argue by making sure that you're charging up $30,000. So the Indiana plan goes out, that gives you a high deductible plan. So you're going to have to pay for things. But if you are, if you're not healthy, then you're going to have to make use of the plan, and they helped you a little bit with the deductible with the health savings account. But if not, then you can save up some money there, and that is money that does not expire. And so you can save up a little bit of money on the side, help you with expensive potential things in the future. So it's one of the most sensible things that you can do right now. It's still early, but I think we're all looking for alignment of incentives. I know, Sunny, you're dealing a lot in all that. And by the way, we're bumping up against our end of the session, so we're going to go till 3:20, and then we're going to have to close it. So, Sunny, you have any? I know you're dealing with that intersection of high value, low cost providers, and how to incentivize.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that point what you're saying, Hubert. Right now, as we all know, healthcare cost is high. So there are a lot of initiatives, innovative plans out there. There's a traditional, PPO plans with the employers. Then there's those combination of the traditional plans with some other plans in there, such as cash rates. Then there are other plans, you have high deductible, others you have zero deductible. So, but all in all, employers feel the pain, they want to save money, employees want to save money. Because of the high deductible, the patients, the employees are actually consumers. Providers also feel the pain because of the changes in reimbursement. So everybody trying to figure out, how do I save money? What's the best way? Then you have the traditional fee-for-service, and then you have the value-based pay. There are a lot of opportunities out there in healthcare. So if you are here as an entrepreneur thinking about what you can do, so much opportunities. So the core is, how do you build a business that can help reduce the pain that is high cost, whether you help the provider side or the patient side or the employer side or the employee side. For us, we're kind of in the perfect storm. We're in the middle of the storm. Our solution is to bring transparency to employees, help employers save money, bring the high quality, low cost providers into light, so that the consumers can shop, find the right information, make the right decision. Providers need those solutions too. That's why they need to white label them so that they can retain the patients. I'll stop here.
Very good, thank you, Sunny. And to solve the mystery, Varika and Ganika are sisters. Just saw it on the text, so they're related. They are in a startup together as well, so that's cool. Thanks for joining us. And we have one last question here. We're going to close out. What advice do you have for someone fresh out of school who wants to get into the startup industry, even as an employee? This is by Sanjay Karasali. Anybody have some advice?
Yeah, I think I can jump in, since the company right out of college as an undergrad. So I mean, whether you're coming out of college or a graduate program, I think it's a huge advantage, because one, you're very naive, right? Like when I look back, if I had known the amount of work involved to start, I probably wouldn't have started. But like, I was just so naive that I thought we could easily pull this together, and that like gets you to actually start something. But you need to be able to complement that by finding someone who actually understands healthcare, so that you can go to them with like your big lofty ideas, and they can bring you down to earth a little bit and tell you, this is why we can't do this because of this law or this regulation. I think Hubert touched on that. Even for things that are legal in Texas, they are not like legal in California or like New York or something of the sort. So just like be hungry, be naive, and find someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and you'll be able to build something amazing post that. If you look at the big names that are going public right now, whether it's Roman or GoodRx, it's like a lot of non-healthcare folks who started these companies and have been able to take it to that level. So yeah.
I would always say, if you're looking to become an employee at an early stage startup, look at who just raised money, because they're likely to be the people that are hiring. That said, the last 3 hires I made were not jobs that I posted. They were jobs where this person I needed to hire because I knew what they could do and what we were dealing with, but we didn't post to go look for them. It was more circumstance and something I kept in my mind of, I need to hire these down the line. But the opportunity came across where this was a really great person to hire, so I made the hire right away. But yeah, look for the companies that just raised money if you're looking to join a startup, because they're going to be the people that are hiring.
Okay. Well, we're going to come to a close here, and thank you, Sunny, Toby, Kobe, for sharing your greatest successes and some of your failures, most importantly, so we can all learn from them. All of you have obviously overcome those and raised millions of dollars, so it is not the end when you make a mistake, it's the beginning. As entrepreneurs, we're always looking forward, and that's one of the greatest gifts you can give someone, to make sure that that's what they keep in mind. I also want to thank everyone that stuck around and listened and asked questions. This This is one of the ways you can get to know entrepreneurs. Join the Dallas Startup Week, listen in on Zoom, make connections there as you can. And networking is a bit different right now, but it's emerging slowly. By the way, in case you don't know it, networking on this platform, I think this is enabled, means you push a button, you click on that networking button, and then you will be matched for a 3-minute and 30-second session face-to-face with a random other Dallas Startup Week attendee. And so you can actually meet someone face-to-face that you would meet maybe by grabbing a Coke or a coffee or something to drink at a regular conference. So this is the accidental piece. I highly encourage you to try that. I very much hope, I'm looking at Lindsay, that this is actually open, the networking thing. It must be open, right? It better be open. If it's not open, we'll complain. It should be open. So take advantage of it. It's a cool feature. Thanks everyone for joining. We're gonna shut this session down. In 10 minutes, the last session of the healthcare track for the day starts. It has to do with healthcare law and startup law. Oh, sorry. No, I'm tomorrow. It's healthcare startup funding. It's 3 venture capitalists talking about healthcare funding, startup funding, and it starts in 8 minutes on the healthcare track. So thanks everyone for volunteering. Thanks for joining us, and join us in 10 minutes for the 3rd session of the day and the last session on the healthcare track for today. All right, take care everyone.
All right.
Thank you.